lifestyle has caught fire, and we talk about the rewards and challenges of it. This is the Wandering Worker Podcast with Matt Lloyd.
Welcome again to the Wandering Worker Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Lloyd. The Wandering Worker Podcast, as always, is powered by Magic Apple Technology, where we've been saving good businesses from bad phone systems since 2008. Whether you're turning in from the comfort of your home office, a cafe, or exploring a new corner of the world, this podcast is your compass to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of remote work. We'll uncover invaluable insights, share personal stories, and connect with experts who have mastered the art of wandering while working. Today, my guest is Jim McCarthy, who is also running the boards and is going to very slowly make his way over to the couch. Thank you, Jim, for being on. I've been on your podcast a couple of times, and it's always a great conversation, a lot of fun.
See if I make myself look okay because I'm kind of running the cameras at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
He's going to look way better than me in this episode.
Oh, whatever. Whatever. You're doing great.
Okay. So 5 questions. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Number 1. What story does your family always tell about you?
Oh, my goodness. My family, as of late, my brother's dating a new girl, and I've heard the story of me mooning people out of the back of an RV no less than 10 times since he's been dating her. She finds it absolutely fascinating.
Well, now I need to hear that story of you.
you know how brothers are. I was probably 6 or 7 years old at the time. My brother was 10.
That's totally different.
Yeah, he put me up to it, and
I was thinking it's like last week or something.
No, well, I mean, I'm not supposed to do that on an ongoing basis. So, apparently, my brother put me up to it. I went ahead and did it. I was, 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
And the drivers were going past because we were driving in an RV.
Yeah.
And like telling my dad, like, hey,
you got
your kids.
Sweet Cheeks back there needs to sit down.
Literally. Yeah. Yeah, interesting question.
That's great. Yeah.
Good to bring that one up.
You're welcome. You're welcome. If you were a vegetable, what vegetable? Talking about interesting, dumb questions. If you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
Potato. I guess that's a vegetable, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Only because how can you not like potatoes?
Yeah, I love potatoes.
Yeah,
potatoes are great.
And maybe, I'm just thinking of vegetables that I like. I like broccoli. I like asparagus, spinach.
Spinach?
Yeah, I love spinach.
Yeah. Popeye, all that jazz? Sure. Yeah, there you go. What's the best thing you got from one of your parents?
Oh, geez. I'm going to say, my dad was very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. He owned his own business, actually doing phone systems.
Yeah.
Like I did. Yeah.
He did, I guess his tenacity, and his ability to think logically. I guess the balance between both my parents, my mom's more, she's just 150% emotion based. Mm-hmm. My father was more balanced. He could go off the deep end too, but he was more, he taught me the phrase, put your pride in your pocket where you put your money.
Oh, wow. Nice. I like that one.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Who had the pipes? Where did you get the great voice and everything?
Neither of them.
Really?
My brother and I were just complete spin-offs when it came to creative arts. So
is your brother very similar to you in that regard?
He's been a piano player since he was about 7 years old.
Wow.
And he's stuck with it. He's amazing. And
that's right. You told me about that because your son also kind of is one of these guys, he can just pick up any instrument and just take off with it.
Yeah, he really picked up on that. But my parents were never musically inclined.
Yeah.
And for me to go into radio the way I did and, kind of break off from the path that they intended for me was they just, I think, were challenged to wrap their minds around that. So, with the pipes, I don't know, just kind of use your voice for a living. Eventually it just gets, eventually I'll probably sound like Sam Elliott.
Well, you sound great.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Question 4, what would you do on a free afternoon in the middle of the week?
Oh my goodness. What have I done? I typically, go grab a beer somewhere, maybe a cigar.
Yeah.
And I like looking at really nice cars.
Yeah.
So I've done that before.
Yeah.
So I'm a car guy.
You've been to the new Ferrari place?
Oh yeah. I was at the grand opening. Talk about people watching.
Oh, I bet.
Goodness.
Who goes to a Ferrari dealership grand opening nowadays?
There's a lot of people there,
Yeah.
and everybody was, the owner was there, and Nick Saban was there because he's part
that's
owner
cool.
of it.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of, people that are hamming up for photos and stuff like that. There's, Courtney and I were there, and there's no way I'd be able to swing a bat at a Ferrari at this point. But,
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, it's no harm to go check one out though. Those
Yeah.
are really pretty vehicles.
They are.
Art on wheels.
Handmade, man.
Yeah. Who was your last question? Who was your favorite teacher and why?
Oh man, like in school.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really specify, but let's say school. Yeah.
Favorite teacher? I mean, first one that comes to mind was Mr. Trudeau in my high school years because he taught practical stuff. He's the one who taught us about a little bit of home ec, the stock market, things of that nature.
That's cool.
Oh man, I think his name was Mr. Valenticonis was another one. Believe it or not, I had a tract that I was on to be a CPA.
Really?
Yeah. Could you see me as a CPA? No.
No.
And, it's one of those things that when I learned about it in senior year, I sunk my teeth into it because it was practical.
Yeah. I
I really enjoyed it. And it was all about business and keeping track of your
Yeah.
debits and your credits and all that stuff. Taught you how to read an income statement and balance sheet. Those two teachers kind of stand out for me. The rest I just,
Very cool. Yeah, that was good.
Thanks.
So give us a little background. I mean, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about what you do.
Currently just doing my thing. I mean, since, I kind of came out, it was part of an entrepreneurial family. My father did what you guys do, and I've certainly evolved past that point. Very familiar with the Toshiba brand of phone systems. And
Yes.
I could probably even initialize one to this day. So if you have one in there and you piss me off, watch it. But there was, I kind of learned the trades. I was always creatively had a bent for that.
Yeah.
Was a drummer in my teenage years. That really was part of my identity. Radio became part of my identity in my 20s. Got into that business. Throughout my 30s, kind of weathered that as well. And at the end of my 30s, my season in life pivoted and changed to the car business where I met you guys.
Yeah.
And I sold Honda right around the corner here as well as Mercedes for a few years.
Yep.
And that was an amazing experience. Really kind of opened my eyes to a bunch of things. Realized how I thought I was a good salesperson and realized I was horrible at closing. But I learned the process of how to close and things of that nature. And it helps me today. I consider it my actual college education.
Yeah.
And ever since that, I've always had a toe in the water on a part-time basis for my own thing, doing voiceover production, some video production from time to time. And then in 2016, I just, went off on my own. And
Yeah,
I've been
because
doing it
you
ever since.
got a couple things. You've got like a lighting business that you're a part of.
Yep.
You do the podcast stuff. You've been instrumental in getting this thing off the ground.
Yes, thank you.
And at the end of this, we'll talk about how people can reach you, because if you're interested in a podcast, this is a guy you want to talk to.
Thank you.
For sure. Tell me about your lighting business and everything. What do you guys focus? You're doing some really cool stuff with that too. Tell me a little bit about that.
The lighting business started out, I got into it and started learning about it in 2016 as well. It was through a former partner of mine who I ran into him. He was part of B&I's and stuff like that, lives in the same neighborhood as me. And I ran into him at a 5K that our wives were running, and we hadn't seen each other in a couple of years. Hey, how are you? What you doing? How's your old business and everything, from what I knew of him from previous networking groups. And at the time he said, well, I'm doing LED lighting, and the TVA is funding or incentivizing the transition at the time. And they were heavily incentivizing it. So as soon as he said that, I said, I can sell that and I can market that, because I was still in the car business at the time. And those of us that were selling for this particular dealership would, pull aside and say, okay, this isn't paying very well, but we know we can sell. So what is lucrative?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I realized, even though it's a much longer sales cycle, there's a good amount of profit in it. And that eventually evolved into meeting my current partner. And we specialize in DMX 512 controlled full color lighting, mostly in the vertical of car washes these days.
Yeah, because like you don't just go to a car wash like you used to at the bays with the little hand sprayer. It's like a show now.
Yep.
I mean, the one that we go to, I think you did the lighting for. You like come through and the suds come down. It's like lava that hit your car. It's cool.
You can make it whatever you want. You can make it lava. You can make it ice. You can make it look like puke. I mean, like, whatever.
That's what I want. I want puke covered in my car.
Can you make it look like puke? Or someone's ralphing on my windshield.
And you guys are getting into some of the stuff you're doing now. I've seen is super cool. I don't know if you can even talk about some of the stuff you're doing now.
Sure, that's fine.
The arches and the full like video display type stuff. So it's like full digital signage that you're pulling your car into, and you've got all this cool stuff. It's really impressive.
Yeah, we're kind of in the forefront of that. Other things, we're even getting into other verticals like the amusement park space, trampoline parks.
Oh, of course. I mean, lighting nowadays, if it's not lit in cool colors and doing stuff, it's boring. I mean, it's from houses to anything else, right?
The colored lighting revolution has yet to begin.
Yeah. Seriously, you think it's going to even blow up?
I think we're on the forefront of it.
Oh, man.
Wave is still far out. It hasn't yet reached the beach.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool because I personally really like all that, and I'm a big Halloween guy, and I love going to the haunted houses and stuff, and you see that's all lighting. I mean, that's the main aspect of all that is the lighting piece.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a stage lighting person these days, it's you're about to be in demand. It's kind of like old radio production people now are back in demand because of podcasts.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, essentially, we've got our own little radio station going on, putting content, putting it out, and it's accessible and it's easy, and it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do so, which is really nice.
No middlemen, no gatekeepers. Yeah, technologically.
It's pretty awesome. So let's talk about some challenges that you went through and let's focus on like the podcast side of stuff, because I really think this has been something that you've been in really from kind of the beginning. You've kind of started looking at this and saw what was come with this. Tell me a little bit about you getting started in, and tell me about your podcast business that you have set up.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was just a natural fit with what I did in radio for much of my adult professional life. Working 4 years in talk radio in Las Vegas, certainly because most podcasts are talk format.
Yeah,
it's actually the most expensive format to run in a radio station. But when you turn it into a podcast, a lot of the smarter radio stations, my first radio station I worked for is doing an amazing job, and I'll be happy to champion those guys. Check them out at I-95 Rock, I think is their handle on Instagram. But they do an amazing job. Every day, the morning show's got a podcast that they're putting out, as they should. That is the pivot for radio. But I mean, that is my radio background going into podcasting is just a natural fit.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So they actually they do the radio. We all like radio shows in the mornings. Those are like morning talk radio, right? And they're taking that, they're doing it on the radio, and they're turning it into a podcast at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's genius.
They got some underpaid schlep that's taking all the stuff and packaging it all up and putting it up on and adding to their day. Just another hat to wear.
That's very very cool.
That's what radio does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, what's some of the stuff that you've seen that you see kind of coming down? Where do you think like podcasting today is going to be 5 years from now?
It's an interesting.
Is it going to just get so concentrated that it's just too much and you can't stand out in a crowd? Or?
I think, podcasting right now has gotten to the point where it's very saturated. Everybody wants a podcast, which is fine. People that need to understand that it has to be the long game. It has to be, I used to say probably about 2 years ago, I said, hey, you're thinking probably, a year or two to get some traction. I'm thinking that's got to be out to 3 or 4 or 5 years now, because there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
Concepts for podcasts. And that's what it really comes down to. What's the big idea? I just had a meeting not a week ago with a pair of guys who they've got a tremendous idea. And it wasn't tremendous at the beginning. We talked about it and I said, that's interesting. That's an angle I like. That's something I don't see anybody doing. It would be interesting to see how that kind of pans out. So, a lot of it is just kind of consulting people and figuring out where they want it to go based on the idea. Radio started in the 20s and 30s. Marconi is credited for developing all that. It evolved into various paradigms over time. you went from live radio, performance-based radio in the 30s and 40s, where they would actually do
serials,
yeah. Little Orphan Annie, Lone Ranger, that kind of thing. That evolved into music radio. It went from AM to FM, and how that evolved. Boss jock era from 60s, 70s, 80s, and then you had the shock jocks, Howard Stern, Don Imus. The evolution of it is yet to be seen with podcasts. I think you're seeing the emergence of guys like Joe Rogan, who's been at it for 14 years.
Yeah.
He started when podcasting came out in 06, 07.
Yeah.
And it was a platform for him to kind of do his thing with his comedy, and plus he had momentum going into it because he was on Fear Factory as the host. That turned into his MMA thing. So as far as podcasting go, to answer your original question with all the different tangents I just went down, I would want to say that if you have a personal brand or a business, that's just the way to go. I mean, even though you may not be a rock star, but you need to understand that you can affect the people that matter within your community or your circles. You know what I mean? And they're marketing machines.
Yeah.
For everything that you need to put out on social media, however that goes. I think that's probably the larger question. What is social media marketing going to look like in 10 years? That's, what is going to what is the, 3.0?
You talk about saturated stuff, right?
Oh,
I mean, good Lord. I mean, it's just, you're bombarded. It's hard to tell the difference between actual content and advertising content anymore. They've gotten so good at it. And then with AI on top of it, it takes the time to generate this stuff down to nothing. Yeah. And so it's happening. It's happening even more. You were talking about Joe Rogan. I watched the Two Bears in a Cave, the podcast with Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer.
Yes.
And they had Kevin Smith on there.
Right.
And he was like one of the originators on there too. And the thing that those guys figured out, it's like the product endorsement and that kind of stuff. Because Kevin was like, they have like a giant house in California that's just their podcast house. And he was on, he goes like, what the hell am I doing wrong? He goes, you guys got this figured out. Yeah. It was so cool because I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. And I was like, that is just, it's nuts to see the potential with this. If you have a little celebrity, if you have a little know-how and people are willing to listen to you, a podcast can really generate a lot of revenue for you.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are already kind of doing it. For example, Jason Aldean and his wife, Brittany. Yeah. They do these little things on Instagram where she kind of cajoles him, and he, you could tell he's just really excited about it. Yeah. But I've actually commented on one of their little interactions. I'm like, y'all need a podcast. And it's like, if you ever need someone to talk to about it, I'm literally 5 minutes from you. Yeah. I'm legit. I'm not going to be like a stalker or anything like that, but I could really help you guys out where you just show up, sit down and go. Yeah. That's my specialty, as you know.
As a 100%.
Yeah. And I've yet to hear back from them, but it's one of those things that, they should be absolutely doing a podcast because it would crush. Yeah, it would be huge.
Yeah, it's just one of these things where it's like, it's not hard. And the thing that I've noticed is that, and that I've really enjoyed about doing this, because I think we're almost 10 episodes in, I guess. Yeah. The thing I've noticed is like when people get on, and like I kind of have to cajole them to get on if they haven't done it before. Yeah. Like when we did earlier with Renee Cook, she's an introvert. She really didn't want to do it. And then afterwards, she was like, that was a lot of fun. Right. And it is a lot of fun. You just sit down, you have this, you're scared about it, you're uncomfortable. But as we all know, sometimes doing those things that make you uncomfortable are actually quite rewarding.
You got to stretch.
You got to stretch. And this is, it's fun to do this and fun to see people's reactions afterwards.
And it's, think of I call it the 10 virtues of podcasting. I mean, it makes you, well, I don't know if it makes me a better speaker, but I mean, I stumble and stammer all the time, and that's something I have to work on. And I've been working on it for 25 years. Yeah. It should make you a better speaker. It should make you a better listener. It should make you, helps you get your business out there, helps you get your clients' business out there or guests' business out there. Right. Who do you want to meet? Yeah. You know what I mean? Bring them on. You never know who's going to say yes or no. Yeah. For a business that's been chasing a big client or trying to get a contact, heck, you can have a CEO on. They'd be more than happy.
I think what I like when I look at this and I see, where I see the future of this stuff going from a business standpoint, that's exactly what this thing is. Yeah. You have a social media, you have SEO. This is just another avenue. It's another distribution point that you put on there. It's gotten easier and easier and easier. How many times do you see on your Instagram or whatever when you're flipping through your socials and you have like, here's a podcast kit. Yep. Here's a discounted podcast. It comes with all the stuff. You just order it. It's podcast in a box, plug and play kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes sense because it's so easy to do. And you can be found. Even if you already have your followers on social media, it's a more engaging aspect than reading something.
As a pal of mine, Brad Lee, it's the source. You know, it's establishing a source. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about documentation over creation. It's hard to create something. It's easier to document. Yeah. That's why he's got a guy following him around with a camera. Yeah. You know, that's where he gets most of his content.
He does like I've seen where he does like the garage sales and does all this stuff. He's always got somebody following him around. He does. Stuff.
You know, that's part of an iteration of where this thing's going to evolve. And video, you know, producers need to figure out the business model around that to follow people around, because you're really producing documentaries, which is a big task.
Huge.
When you're doing stuff like that, that's why Vaynerchuk's got a team of 20, 30 people just for him.
Yeah.
That's how he can crank out 10 pieces a day.
Yeah.
On each platform that are individual to the platform, native. That's
crazy.
Dude, he's doing it on another planet.
Yeah.
You know, but for people that, you know, realistically can't do that, podcasts are the solution all the way. Yeah. And think about it this way. Another virtue that struck me not too long ago was literally while I was doing a presentation in BNI. It hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I just thought of this. Think about the legacy. Imagine if you could go to YouTube and listen to your grandfather.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Right? I didn't even think about that. Right. That's crazy.
You know, how would
That's a really cool idea.
Right? You know, I mean, I would love to hear how my father thought about things in his 30s and 40s, because I was a little kid back then, you know?
Well, you think, because like, you know, the importance of, like you talk about the legacy, my wife has, you know, copies of letters that her great-great-great-grandfather wrote when he was in the Civil War back home, talking about he needed socks and all this kind of, that you just had these old crusty letters. Our great-great-great-grandkids are going to have video content
of us making fools of ourselves.
Of us making fools of ourselves and going, oh, my granddad was a nut, man. Yeah. Or great-grandpa.
Out there exists a video of me making an ass out of myself on the pedestrian bridge for
I've
a
seen
Jack
it
FM.
when you were
Johnny Slovak. That was the character name.
Yeah, I remember that.
I played this overconfident former Olympian who's clearly out of shape. And, you know, my gut's hanging out. I got sweat marks all over me. And
hilarious.
I'm like, so when's lunch? You know, what the hell? I was freaking 30 years old. What did I know? You know?
So I remember that video, but you're right, because this stuff's hanging. We tell our kids that, but I actually never really pointed that finger back at myself.
Right.
And I'm just now thinking about all the crap that people are going to see about me.
The video you and I did, the first one we did, where you were trying to do just a video, and I'm like, so what do you do?
Yeah, it's just...
It still makes me laugh.
Me too. And they were so fun to do, but it's this whole idea of just having video, and you had already kind of embraced it with all the other stuff that you've done, but that was new to me.
Yeah.
And to do that, how much fun it was, how memorable it was, and then how it actually connected with people.
Yeah.
Like, I still get comments, because we did a presentation, a video that I had to take to a business forum. We talked about Magic Apple and everything we did, and I played the straight guy, and you played the guy that was just cutting up everything.
Right.
And it was so good. To this day, members of my forum will be like, remember that video?
What happened to that jackass?
What happened to that video, you guys? They just want to see the video again. You know what I mean? Right. I was like, oh man, we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we did a lot of that with Jack FM when I worked here in town, and but that was creating. You know, it wasn't really when you're a business, to get in, if you're going to become a creative medium, that takes brain power, man.
Yeah,
you know.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, totally.
And it's the other side of it is that when you fail in that regard, it's not just a private mess up. Yeah. You're putting stuff out there. Everybody's going to see you messing that up. But I don't think they care. I think you're probably a lot like me in that you're a lot more self-critical and more self-aware of a mistake, where others are just like, I thought it was great. And you're like, no, I didn't like that piece of it. Are you not? Because I am that way.
Because I kind of, you know, iron out the wrinkles as they come. One of the things that I always encourage my clients to do is that, you know, listen back to your stuff and be your biggest self-critic. You know, it's an air check session, if you will, like we did in radio. A PD would, you know, you'd come in for your shift and, hey, come in the office. We're going to do an air check. oh, crap.
Yeah.
You know, it's quality inspection at that point. And they would pull the tape from the night before, or in my case, or the previous evening. Let's go over it. You know, it's helpful, but at the same time, like, okay, what did I say?
Yeah.
And it was an air check session, but if you're not doing that on an ongoing basis, if you're not listening back, listening for crutch phrases that you use, if you're saying and too much, there are ways around that. And a lot of people, they kill their podcast when they get into it. Well, I need to edit all those out, buddy. It's over before it began.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to spend hours per episode editing every little tick.
And that's the thing where like
nobody cares.
Right. And that's the great thing about having you do the production piece of it and really be a beacon in a dark tunnel and saying, this is the way we're going, follow me this way.
Right.
Because I don't really have any say in it. We do this, you give me a product at the end of it, and I'm like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing to not, because I totally would be that guy. I would pick this thing apart.
Right.
I'd be cutting every little thing.
Yep.
I'd obsess over, like the first time we did, I brought three shirts. I was like, well, they have to be different shirts every time. It won't make sense.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's kind of refreshing.
Just hang out, and
exactly.
people understand we batch record.
Yeah.
It's not beyond them.
Yeah.
That's the other element. I'm thinking continuously back to the question you asked, how is it going to evolve? There's a lot of podcasts out there. The good news is that 98% of them suck.
Yeah.
They're milquetoast. They're
and won't last because they're just going to quit eventually.
Right. So
like when you told me when we first got in this thing, you're like, hey, dude, your initial goal is 100 episodes.
Yep.
And if you're not willing to commit to that, let's just not even do it.
Right.
And we didn't just jump right into it. We talked about it. It probably was 6 months before I was like, okay, I'm ready. I've really, we had to come up with a good concept because I had a hard time coming up with that because there is a lot of stuff.
I use you as a model all the time. I said, I got a client who dove right in. He intentionally thought about his angle and what he wanted to talk about, how it was congruent with his business, which the wandering worker is. That's what you essentially, that's the problem you solve.
Absolutely.
And you gave it a lot of thought. You put some money into it. You decorated the office. This used to be your actual office.
Yeah, this was where I worked every day, and we just cleaned it all out, and this is it.
This is a good, very comfortable studio to come in. I got my station right there where I can just, pop down and we go.
Yeah.
That's something that a lot of people don't really, they want to do like the virtuals and stuff like that. They don't think about the technical hurdles to overcome with virtual because you got, connectivity issues, all that kind of stuff. We did the one with Jim Schreiber, and that turned out pretty good. You did, but again, that was just because you knew what you're doing. Right. If I tried to do that, it would have been a nightmare. It would be a nightmare, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're technically savvy. You'd be able to figure it out. But I mean, I've just been doing this a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel, though.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of it is just, I think in how people present themselves, especially in social media, I think over time, a lot of people will be weeded out in terms of how authentic they are and how, if they're trying to be a coach or somebody like that, they'll be weeded out because it's people can sense that stuff.
And you can see genuine,
right?
If
you have the stripes or not.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
Yeah,
very obvious. So with your business, what's the name of your podcast business?
I call it it'syourshow.co.
So what do you see? What are your goals for that business? Where do you want that business to go in the next 5 years?
Well, I mean, as you scale, a lot of the business still needs me here locally, as a consultant and executive producer on a lot of different podcasts that I produce. There's only so much of me that can go around. Yeah. So either I have to figure out a way to do it remotely where I can tap into all the different things from a remote basis. You and I talked about it actually the last episode that I had you on. And also just a platform that, myself as a radio veteran, if you will, truly understands the podcasting platform and how I can do it much better than all the other platforms out there. Yeah. And fill in the holes of what a podcast should truly be,
What do you see like some of the big drawbacks right now, the big holes that are missing that you see in some of these other podcasts?
Oh, production all day long, production quality.
Yeah.
Great podcasts. I just came across one a couple weeks ago. A friend of mine was on it. It's all about garage doors and that profession, that industry. Great niche podcast, especially for that industry. That's huge. And if they want to be influential and stuff, they're only about 10 episodes in, but the production quality is just not there. Yeah. And I reached out to the guy. I said, hey, I know you're one of the guests that you had on. I'd love to talk to you. So I spent 15 minutes with him saying, hey, however we can figure out helping you with intros and stuff like that, even just you send me the stuff, I do my thing and send it back to you. We can talk about something because you're onto something here. Yeah. I see the potential in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Listen, I appreciate the heck out of you doing this today. Yeah. I've been on your podcast twice. I always have a blast talking to you. You're a lot of fun to talk to. Where can everybody find you? And if they want to do a podcast, where can they find you?
Typically, first and foremost, I mean, I don't have I have a semi-official website for it'syourshow.co. It goes to a page on my other website.
Yeah, there you go.
That is the production podcast page of JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. But either one of those two.
Well, I'm sure
JMVOS.com too. I bought that recently.
I got you. I'm betting that those links will be in this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, thank you, Jim, for being on. I appreciate you being on, and we'll do this again because I always have a great time talking to you.
Thanks, buddy.
So that's it for this episode of The Wandering Worker. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from Jim today. Mark your calendar for our next podcast. We put them out weekly. We like to always thank our sponsor, Magic Apple, for paying for this and getting everything done. If you're not thrilled with your business phone system or your work at home experience, give us a call. We help people like that all the time. That's what we do all day in and day out. Check us out on socials, like us, follow us, and again, as always, enjoy your week.
And Matt is going for 1,000 average downloads per episode. So make sure you like, subscribe, share, and review and rate at thewanderingworkerpodcast.com.